Alright, so I was asked to show you guys how I get about 30, it depends, anywhere from 33 to 35 mil on Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss. So just for reference sake, this isn't one of the guys. I'm going to show you guys what the uh, stats are for them, why they're where they are at, and I'll try to give you guys some ideas of who you can change and who you shouldn't. Um, as we go along. But for now, I'll just show you the gear. So the biggest thing to start off with is that you want to try to get the speed for each character pretty similar. I would say try to aim exactly for what I have for each of the 5 characters. There are 2 that are mandatory for this, and I'll show you why. The 2 that are mandatory are Skull Crusher, and he needs to be at 241, no, 243. Okay, and the reason for that is you want him to be going first and the fastest, and you'll see why. Um, some of you may be wondering, well, why can't I just use any counterattack? The counterattack's not what's important per se. What's important is that he can take a slam and not die. He puts a unkillable buff on himself. Now, you can do this with other unkillables. You can do this with other like Maneater. I know I was asked about Sir Nick. You can do them, and that's great. The reason why I use Skull Crusher, for one, I only have one Maneater, and I really don't want to book him because it doesn't seem worth it. 2, Skull Crusher does give a counterattack, and it does happen for 1 turn, so that does help a little bit with the other guys' damage. So you guys choose what you want and kind of go from there. So anyways, to go back to the total stats. So a lot of these other stats don't matter when you're first trying to do this, but when you're first trying, try to get a speed to 243, and that goes with all the other guys I'm about to show you. Worry about their speed first, and then we'll go from there. For Skull Crusher, what also matters though is you got to make sure he survives a couple of rounds because he does take hits where he is vulnerable to die. So you do need him to have a little bit of health and a little bit of defense. Then when you guys go to the next step, you look at his crit chance and crit damage because you want him to be hitting as hard as he can because then he will siphon life back, and I'll show you where he gets that from. The other thing you do not want is debuff resistance, and the reason for that is if he resists the stun and you just have it on auto, it messes up the whole order and somebody's going to die, and then your whole team will wipe pretty quickly after that. So for masteries, you really don't need actually all of them to be done, and the reason for that is you do not want to take stuff that actually will take a chance to resist things, give you turn meter, anything like that. It's a very sensitive way of done it, and if you go like you can just waste them all down here to try to get to like this one here where you can counter attack whenever stun is, but the problem with that is he's the one you want to be stunned, so he doesn't need that, so no point. But this is just because the reason I chose this is because he's usually below 50%, so it'll increase his damage. And then the rest of it, you kind of the usual clan boss stuff. So nothing special about his build here, just other than make sure if you're going to finish him off, if you got to go with, you don't even need accuracy on this guy. So if you're going to go with defensive tree, make sure that you're not taking stuff that increases his speed or increases his resistance. So you don't want that. Also, you do not want him to, what's that ability in here? I think it's this one? No. There's one in here. Yes, you do not want this at all. You do not want these, and the reason for that is you want everything to be specifically at a certain time. You do not want his counterattack buff to come up earlier than that, because then that will drop off his unkillable and also his and leave him vulnerable or other people vulnerable. So uh, so other than that, we go with the other person that's the fastest, which is my Roskar, the Tower. I actually slept on this guy for the longest time. He's one of my first legendaries. So, Oh yeah, the other thing is the skills. The only thing you need to make sure you have is this, because you need this to be a 3 turn. You could do it as a 4 turn, but the problem with that is, no, you can't, so never mind about that. You need this to be 3 turns. So that's the only thing you need on him. This one just gives you more damage, so do what you want. Roshguard, um, his big thing that you need to worry about with him is speed. He needs to be 241. And you'll see why there's that little gap between them, and it's actually very small. And you'll see what exactly happens. I have way too much hit points on him, but whatever. You want to try getting him for attack because you want his basic to be hitting as hard as it can. I'll try to work on his crit chance right now, but not much I can do. The rest of the stats don't matter. So his HP, the only thing it's good for is his A2 is based on his hit points. So problem with that is when he uses it, he can sometimes take up a debuff spot, which means your poisoner can't use it, so you kind of lose a little bit of damage, but just depends on your team makeup. So the only thing that really matters for his skills is that you need this to be booked all the way down. So it needs to be a 4 turn cooldown. You'll see why. I don't have this finished because I really don't care about the last cooldown. And only reason why these two have any books on them is because I got unlucky. So his masteries, uh, very similar to what the Skull Crushers was. I chose this because there is a chance that this will proc for whenever Crusher is getting stunned. So a little bit more damage. Otherwise, it's the same basic thing. Once again, if you're going to vary off of this, make sure... I should have changed this. Maybe not. Never mind. Make sure that you don't do the exact same thing I said before about, he's another guy that's very sensitive about turn meter and stuff like that, so you don't want to change him to get extra turn meter or his cooldowns to come off one earlier because that does mess up things. Razin, for this spot, so this is the third spot, you want somebody that either does defense down and weaken, or so that could be Razin, Drake, and if you got Draco, use them. Sorry, not Drake, Draco, or Venus. And I just only have him, so he's my best guy I have for it. 195 is his for this person, for your weaken / defense down. And other than that, you just want whatever the stat is that best helps out for damage. So obviously for me, you want to have that and defense, and obviously accuracy helps. So skills don't matter because all you're worried about is damage. Sucks that he even uses the other two. And once again, same thing. You're wanting to do your regular clan boss. This one doesn't matter about if one of your abilities comes up quicker or not. All you got to worry about is that you can't change the turn meter. Turn meter is very important for these next 2 or 3, including him. Normally I use Banshee. That's the one I've been doing lately. So your 4th position will be your Poisoner, and you want this one at 193. As you will see, I don't think I changed her yet, have I? No. And then all you want to do is make sure she's critting, or he is critting and damaging, and then the highest accuracy you can. The rest of the stats don't matter for this person. So the 5th person I was having was Nethril. Now the problem I had with Nethril is that he was dying in certain circumstances, trying to lead up to getting the whole the clan boss into the auto rotation, because you got to go twice through the rotation before you can hit auto. And what sometimes happens is that he becomes the target of the stun, and that could kill him. So what I've done now is you'll see, I'm going to actually use Tyrant. So Tyrant's going to be my 5th. So for your 5th, whoever it is, it's either going to be another Poisoner or a very hard-hitting guy, such as Septimus. You can use... who else did I see? Vizier, guys like that, just to up your damage and whatnot. Once again, nobody that'll change your turn meter, nobody that'll block debuffs, no one that'll take debuffs off, because you do not want that. So 191. The rest of the stats don't matter, but for this person, make sure this for your fifth spot for 191, you will see that there is one spot where this person can die, so you want to make sure they're tanky or they have enough health to sustain it, which is my problem I was having with Nethril. So we'll go into the clan boss. Oops, wrong one. The other thing too is that if you're going off of Void, this one may not work. It works semi on Force. It'll work on not Spirit, sorry, on Magic, but it will not for sure work on Spirit. And the reason for that is the decreased speed. So we'll get into this, and I'm going to take. Depending on who you have for your fourth and fifth slots, you can make them the leader. Doesn't matter. Yeah, Banshee's out and Tyrant's in. Okay. Other than that, I don't really have one that's going to be good for increasing my damage. That's who you would put for your leader. So we'll go with this. All right, so at the start here, first person that should always go is obviously Skullcrusher. You want to do this. Now this one doesn't really matter, but I do it just to, I found that it was protecting my Nethril when he was the fifth spot. So just in case, I'll do it. It loses you a little bit of damage though, so you don't need to do it. Your third guy should be Razin, who should be going, or your defense down and weaken. Fourth should be your poisoner. And fifth will be whoever your big DPS is. So in my case, this will be Tyrant. Okay. So as you can see here, because Roshguard's put up his block damage buff, no one's taking any damage. We're doing good. From now on, you just do A1s. Could do his A2, it doesn't matter, but just I don't want to take the chance of putting up a useless debuff. So now, yeah, just keep going A1s. Okay, so now here we've already done his third turn here for Skullcrusher. So just so you see why. Okay, so now you see my Nethril's already taken a pretty big hit here. So, all right, so Roshgar's gone. Right now you want to go A1 here. So both of these, we're on the third turn now, and this is where we start to change it up a bit. So your Poisoner and for me Tyrant will usually use A1. Tyrant only uses A2. So now with the Skullcrusher will not be able to go again before Clan Boss goes. So now we'll use his counterattack. Okay, keep going with the A1s here. See, and that's what you want. You want Skullcrusher to be stunned. Because now Skullcrusher's counterattack and his unkillable buff will take another turn, and we have him set up to take 4 turns compared to the clan boss's 3. So now we're back to about to do his AoE, so we do defense down, weaken. Okay, so A1, as you saw, he had 3. A1. Okay, so Roshguard will not get another turn again. So now we will do AoE, block debuffs, or block damage, sorry. Okay. Now Tyrant, this is the only time where that 5th person will be sustainable to die. Like I was saying before about how I had Nethril, well, I was finding that Nethril was dropping way too low, and he became vulnerable. So this is where he can be vulnerable because right now, the 5th person has been left out for this turn. You'll see it right away here. Okay, so A1, 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 A1. Alright, we don't need to do defense up and all that, so we'll just keep doing A1. Okay, so if Skullcrusher does not get stunned, what happens now is that he would have selected his A2 and done it here, and you'll see what happens. But because he got stunned, he still has one more turn before we can cast it. Okay, A1, A1, A1. Okay, cast his A1. And see, he got another turn before the clan boss does, so now he does his A2. And because he's the one who has the least amount of buffs, and eventually will become the most the one that clan boss thinks is the weakest and also the closest to death, he will start only attacking him. Okay, so now Roshguard still has one more turn before he can do his AoE block damage. So he just does his A1. Okay. Defense down and weaken. A1. A1. Do that. And now, once again, Roshguard's going. He won't get another turn before the clan boss goes, and yeah, so he'll do block damage, and now you can hit auto. So the reason why you can hit auto now is that everybody's in sync. So now Roshguard went last before the clan boss went. The only thing, or sorry, before I get to that, so now you know that everybody is protected by his AoE block damage, and the only person that's now vulnerable will be in the third round right there, and that is Skull Crusher. So you want Skull Crusher to keep doing that. You want him to be stunned. Now, the thing to look for is that if Skull Crusher doesn't get stunned by the hit, or if for some reason the clan boss decides to target one of your other guys, what you want to do is stop the auto right away, because you're going to have a chance where one of your guys is going to be left vulnerable. And then what you'll want to do is, here I'll show you. Okay, so you want to have it where you're in control before this turn, because this is the turn where if he's not stunned or if somebody else gets targeted, this is where he would do his AoE or his counterattack and then unkillable. So what you would do is just go with an AoE or his regular attack, and then you can hit auto again. So, all right, I will just let it go, and you guys will see what it's like. I might even speed it up. We'll see. But I'll be back. Alright, so now you're gonna see that when CB takes his next turn, he will do an AoE, kill everybody. So I already can tell Tyrant does not do as much damage as Banshee also. So there's also a couple things that I want you guys to realize. Um, so there's the screen. Tyrant did nowhere near what Banshee does, and in fact Netheril did less, or a little bit more, but like not enough to make up for Banshee. So um, if you're trying to change Skull Crusher for Sir Nick, the problem I think you might have with that is that Skull Crusher's cooldown for his unkillable is 3 turns. You need to have that unkillable at 3 turns. Now I don't know Sir Nick, I don't have him, so if he's not 3 turn cooldown for his unkillable, which I don't think it is, then you can't use it. Man-Eater might work here, but like I said, if his unkillable isn't 3 turns, it won't work because you want Skull Crusher to be the one stunned because then this allows your damage dealers to always be the ones doing damage because Skull Crusher still gets to take a turn and still do the damage. So you aren't losing damage anywhere in this team for this team makeup. The other thing I forgot to tell you guys is that when you're doing, when I showed you Skull Crusher, so I had a problem earlier today, but anyways, that's why it's so low. When you're doing your Skull Crusher build, make sure it's a mandatory skill you have to take. You have to take this one. And the reason for that is you need him to still be able to get health back, but it doesn't have to be anything great. It doesn't have to be him back up to 50% by the time the clan boss goes to hit him. The reason why you want to take this is that if he's at 1 health and the clan boss comes around back to do his slam and he sees that Skull Crusher is at 1 HP with unkillable, he will determine that he's not killable and go and target someone else. So that's why this skill needs to be taken. So other than that, guys, you don't really have too much more to say for you guys. If you do not have a heavy hitter, I would go to poisoners. Everything I keep testing doesn't seem to want to work. I've tried the 2 poisoners. Don't use Brawler because if there's a chance for him to get that extra turn thing, that'll set up the whole thing out of proportion. So you don't want that. I've tried Knight Errant after seeing Murder Inc.'s video. I don't have anywhere near his gear, so it's not working. It doesn't work as well as having Banshee and Netheril. If you have 2 Banshees, that works. I believe Gravekill Chiller will work too. 2 Banshees can even work because if you can have it where when one's the poison sensitivity goes down, the other one will cast it because it will sense that, hey, we don't have poison sensitivity, mine's up. I believe that's how it works. I've seen that on the autos, it always knows because I've done it with buff extenders and that, and then she never casts it until it comes down, and then she casts it again. So I believe you can run this team with 2 Banshees. I think he can work too. I have a Tomb Lord. I don't know. Like these are the ones that I can try out if you guys want. You guys can